Why don't we just hop straight into some news? We have one news story that is a pretty big deal that Ben is hot and bothered by. Mr. Jonathan Taylor was permitted to seek a trade by the Indianapolis Colts. The only snag is that they are apparently wanting a first-round pick or equivalent value to a first-round pick in return for Jonathan Taylor.
So, long story short, they're kind of just toying with him, I think. Said, you can go get a
Exactly.
trade. Absolutely. Go find you a trade so that we can deny it.
Yeah. The thing is, he's not going to get traded. That's what's really funny about this.
I don't think
because
I hope it happens. Let's put it, I sincerely hope it happens.
it probably
think
would be
anybody's gonna
good
pay
for his
first.
fantasy value. Nope, nobody. will.
There are places that can be good.
Okay, let's go through, since we're allowing ourselves to explore a scenario that will in fact never happen. Let's do that. Let's just look at some places where Jonathan Taylor could go, and it would be better for him for fantasy because, let's face it, there's quite a few of them. Lead us off. Where should he go?
I think the top spot's Miami. That's kind of a glaring, obvious one. It makes too much sense for it to happen.
Yeah.
They need a running back. They haven't gotten a free agent running back. They have a great team. They have a shot at a championship. They're obviously going for a championship. So let's just go fill the one hole in the team with a 24-year-old running back who led the league in rushing 2 years ago. It makes
That would
far
be
too
great.
much sense. Guy
That would
who
be great.
who leads the NFL in his first 3 years in yards per attempt at 5.1. No one else has done that.
Imagine Jonathan Taylor in that 49ers West Coast zone running. I don't know if it's West Coast, but that zone run system. That would not be fair.
Look, if Raheem
frankly.
Mostert and Jeff Wilson and those guys can thrive in that offense, can you imagine what a guy who literally is one of the top, in real life, he's a top 5, potentially top 3 running back in the league. He's very good. People seem to sleep on the fact Jonathan Taylor is very good.
Yeah, the Dolphins so far in preseason have doubled up the Colts in rushing yardage. So, just that little tidbit there. I threw out the Chiefs just because, anytime
Again.
any good player comes available,
We've said
the
this.
Chiefs get
We're
involved.
like, DeAndre Hopkins wants a trade. Okay, Chiefs, go get him. Like, I don't
But
know.
also, there's
Anybody.
there's the storyline here of a couple years ago when the Chiefs took Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round. The argument leading up into that draft was, is it Clyde Edwards-Helaire or is it Jonathan Taylor? And obviously, the correct answer there would have been Jonathan Taylor,
They
or
made a
frankly,
boo-boo.
anyone else, because Clyde is not nearly as good as like 6 other backs in that draft.
I know. I'm just looking through names. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor would be better. Cam Akers are better. I know you hate him, but can you imagine if DeAndre Swift had started his career in that offense? That would have been great.
Yeah. Yep.
Who else was in that draft class?
I'm pretty sure J.K. Dobbins was in that draft class as well.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins. He's better than CEH. There's got to be one I'm not thinking of, but we just listed
Yeah.
4.
Yeah, all better. Also, Chicago, I feel like, is another one. I know it's a rushing quarterback, but I feel like they are so committed to the run that Jonathan Taylor could still thrive in that offense.
Yeah, I definitely don't think Chicago. I could see where they would want him, but I don't think Chicago is in position to or has really the means to go get him because they definitely can't
Yeah,
pay
they
a
don't.
first because your first is probably top 10. You ain't gonna pay that for him. If,
No.
like the Chiefs won't pay the 31st overall pick, then Chicago's not gonna pay the 10th overall pick.
Right.
I think.
Yeah,
I think. Go ahead.
No, I don't. It's really hard to do this whole exercise because no team is going to pay a first-round pick for Jonathan Taylor and then pay him $60 million or whatever it costs to bring him in.
Yeah, it shocks me though. Like, say you've got a team like Miami. I don't know their cap space situation, but I'm pretty sure they have money free that they
Yes.
could use to give him, and it would make a lot of sense to go there. Like Dallas, they've got some money, but like think about somebody like the Bills or the Chiefs. Like they're one of the top 3 teams in the league. So best case scenario, you just paid the 32nd overall pick for Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
Worst case scenario, you paid the 29th overall pick for Jonathan Taylor. That's a glorified second round pick. Like
Yeah.
You're at the very, very bottom of the first round. Why wouldn't you go ship that off? Like, say you rework some contracts and you can give him 2 years, $30 million. Give him 15 a year. Do whatever he wants to do. You paid 1 first-round pick, and you get a running back who's in his prime. He's one of the best in the league for a 2-year championship window. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, it does. I think maybe the pushback in terms of like on the field, maybe the pushback argument would be all those teams, their identity is in the passing game, and Jonathan Taylor obviously is not a wide receiver, nor is he really the focal point of a team's passing game. So I could see a team being like, we're not going to go pay a high capital pick like a second rounder and then immediately go pay $15 million a year to a running back, no matter how good he is, just because like, philosophically they just don't want to do it. I could see it being that sort of a deal as well.
Yeah. And I agree there. For me, that's why Miami makes the most sense, is because obviously they have Hill and Waddle, and that's the focal point of their offense. But they do, what Mike McDaniel's coming from is a run-focused system, and he has shown that Miami can run the ball with those guys. So that would make the most sense. I also think Minnesota makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Shatter the dreams of the Alexander Madison people. But you go and you basically reset the clock on your running back room. Dalvin Cook, that's Jonathan Taylor 3 years ago. So,
yeah,
that would make sense to me as well.
Yeah, Minnesota would. Miami, I think Miami is probably the only team that I can think of anyway that would acquire Jonathan Taylor and then most likely instantly become a Super Bowl contender.
I also
they're
feel
on that
like
fringe, and they're like one. I feel like they are one piece away from being right there. So I could see them being like, you know what, F it, let's go get him.
Yeah, I mean they were on the cusp last year before Tua got hurt, and of all like the big name teams, like obviously everybody wants to like, oh yeah, let's go put him on the Bills, let's go put him on the Chiefs, and yes, that's all great in theory, but logistically it would be extremely hard for those teams to do so. Miami's the only one that like I could see them actually pulling this off with their cap space, and I could see them be like, all right, fine, have our first round pick. We're hoping it's late anyway. Or the Colts also said they want like a first or equivalent value in picks. So I don't know, send a second round and maybe a fourth, fifth. I don't know what equivalent NFL value is technically there, but a second and a fourth, and go get Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, none of this will happen. He won't get traded. Most likely he will just play for the Colts this year.
I love Jim Irsay saying that Jonathan Taylor is not worth what he's worth. We're not going to pay him market value, but we're going to ask for market value when we try to trade him.
They always do.
Otherwise, we're not going to trade him.
That's what they always do.
You're not worth it, but we're not going to trade you for that. We're not going to trade you for what we value you as.
They don't want to pay him Christian McCaffrey money, but they want Christian McCaffrey value.
That's not how this works, guys.